Brian, can you hear me?
Sorry, I have the matrix printouts here. I'll put them up on the screen. I also have the objectives that was generated, I think, by you, Leroy, and with Chief to kind of make sure that we all have are on the same page as to what the apparatus is and what the needs are, and then that kind of translates into our matrix here, fleshing out multiple different options and ultimately boiling it down as to what our strategy is going to be in May for town meeting. Ultimately, I think we want to use this time to go through these packets. I can share the screen as well. We can make any edits on the fly as we see here, and then ultimately come to the larger body of a committee so that we can try to make a decision on what we're going to be doing.
Brian, if I could, I apologize. I know I'm late and it's not typical, but a quick chairman's sort of update going into this. I think it's important, especially with some members of the community here with us. I told the committee that I would go out of my way to try to get together with Jay Funneling. I see Jay's on the meeting. I was able to do that. I had a long conversation with him, and frankly, it was for me, it was an excellent conversation because it reminded me we've all been doing it so long that we sort of assume things that aren't necessarily what everyone knows. And Jay pointed out that certainly he's as chair of the warrant committee, he's concerned about making sure the warrant committee is educated. He had two main questions, two main needs, which I told him I would formally get back to him. I wanted sort of, I guess, approval of the committee, the full committee. We do it. But his two main needs were, why do we need to work on Atherton Street at all? Do we really need to update the Atherton Street fire station? Fair question. Second question, do we need to do it now or can we wait 10 years? So another fair question. So, this committee has a long history. We were going to do all three. We explained a lot to the community. But before we do any community, I think we have to re-educate everybody as to what we're doing. Okay, so that's just a general intro for the warrant committee. And by the way, part of that discussion, the committee worked hard when we were originally formed. Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. These two. The committee worked hard when we originally formed. Well, first, answering a question and doing a deep dive, a lot of work. Does the town of Milton need 3 fire stations, or can we deal with 2? When we were started, the objective was to investigate rebuilding all 3 fire stations. That was our charge. But we saw the wisdom in saying, look, we're going to have to really defend to the community that we need 3 stations versus 2. And we had to convince ourselves. So we did an analysis. Yes. Frankly, working with the former vice chair, Dan Clark, we did he found a program and we did an analysis and said, ignore who owns what properties in the town of Milton and pick 2 best places for a fire station, right? Anywhere on the map. The national standards for fire stations, and I do think, I'm sorry to take some time here, but I do think it's kind of important. The national standard for fire response by any fire station is to get 90% of your coverage area within 4 minutes or 4 minutes or less. So we did a program on our own and come up with 2 spots. Ironically, the 2 spots it picked, one was close to the locations, one was close to where the current Atherton Street is, ironically. The other spot was close to, oh my God, it's a piece of property that's owned by the cemetery trustees. It's right by the pond. Thank you. So we said, okay, we did an analysis and it was close as to whether it could really keep at 90% of the calls within the 4 minutes. So we decided we'd take it one step further. We'd find out if there's a professional organization that does this kind of analysis. We did. We engaged them. They did it. And the answer was simply no. The 2 stations would not meet the standards. In fact, we fed them, and we had both 5 and 10 years worth of actual fire calls, and we gave that to them. And there was a couple of hundred of calls that Milton had to respond to that were within the timeframes for the three stations that now would not be. So actual fires, so we as a committee decided we did need three stations. I gotta tell you, and the chief said this recently, which I think is a wide opinion. The way traffic is around the town of Milton, I'm glad we do have three. I can't imagine, for example, handling a call up by Atherton Street from the central station now. The traffic on Canton Avenue. Okay, so
Let's cut to the chase, Brian. Are we gonna go?
yeah, we're going to, Ellen, we're going to, thank you.
6.
Yeah, I could come up with, I do want to say though, this support, I'm relieved that the options that we have 6 options here, that there's not a dramatic difference in the cost. And so that we as a committee and the community will focus on what's the best solution, not look for the cheapest option. Okay, and we have some flexibility there. So anyway, let's do it. Go ahead. Jump into the options, Brian.
Yeah, sure. So like I said, we tried to parse things out as we stood here. What we wanted to have as the driving force was the objectives list that was also sent around in those packets, which is kind of an updated programming to ensure that anything that was going to be designed is actually satisfying the needs of the department. I think the first question that we need to get out in the open for this forum in this committee is agreements on option 1 and option 2. Option 1 is the current design as it stands right now, leaving the 2 existing bays in the existing structure and 1 new additional bay built onto the side of it. That would mean that there would be 1 new apparatus bay, 2 existing. According to the objectives and apparatus list that we have here, I have that currently as this does not satisfy the programming and the operations of the department. So option 1. And Chief, maybe if you could give me an assist here with the way that breaks down with the objectives list and the bays that would produce, so having 1 new apparatus and 2 existing, why that would not work for how you see the operations right now.
So it's challenging just with the existing bays. They are not adequate. Right now, the bays, the doors are 10 by 10, but if you look at the top, it goes down to 9.8 and the fire trucks are 9.5. And then with a 10-foot width, the trucks are 9.6. So it gives you 2 inches on each side, 4 inches on each side, and then 2 or 3 inches. When we had the firefighter that Daniel Thomas's funeral, Stoughton, was covering the town, and they had to take equipment off the top of their truck to fit inside the bay. So it just doesn't, those bays don't fit modern fire apparatus. And, looking forward, where do we see ourselves with equipment now and in the future? There's some things, the fire service has changed. We're not still the fire service from 1950s or 1901. The fire trucks are big, they're heavy, a lot of equipment. We're asked to do a lot more than we ever have. We're not a fire department anymore. We're an all hazards rescue department. So the equipment that we have, the trucks carry all the equipment. So that's why the size is there. We carry 750 gallons of water on each of the trucks. So we have some water to stop that fire attack right off the bat before anybody else could get there, or the other apparatus get there.
And Chief, it's safe to say that as we purchase new fire engines in the future, they're probably not at all fit in that bay.
So we have a couple on order, and they're the exact same size. The make and model that we have up there now, which we also have down at engine 2, are the exact same size. The current engine 1 that's out there right now does not fit at engine 2's quarters and does not fit at engine 4's quarters. So there's only 1 firehouse that it can fit. It's here. That is slated to get replaced, but that becomes our backup fire truck. When something goes up for maintenance, something breaks or whatever, or if we're tied up and we need another fire truck, that's the one that we're going to keep. So the only place to keep it, so it only goes here, and it just doesn't fit in the
Can
fire.
it go to East Milton?
The new firehouse, it will.
Okay.
The current firehouse, no, it will not.
In Atherton, right.
Right, so both those doors are 10 by 10.
I agree.
And the new firehouse here is 14 by 14 and the new firehouse is 14 by 14. So I think Paul, you know the height on that? That's like 10 something, right? The engine one. It doesn't fit.
10-3, I think.
Yeah, it's 10-3. So it just doesn't fit. And then you're looking for the future, where are we going? What are some of the equipment that we need? One of the things that I've identified is when we've had these large scale wildfires, one of the things we don't have is water. We have a brush truck that carries 200 gallons of water in it. Driving a mile and a half into the Blue Hills and putting 200 gallons of water on a 10-15 acre fire is nothing. And we have to rely on our mutual aid partners. We rely on, I think when we had the fire last November, we had 30 different departments there, but a lot of them we had Dover, we had Norfolk, we had Foxborough, we had Canton, we had Raynham, all of those large tankers, off-road tankers that carry 1,000, 2,000 gallons of water off-road into the woods. So we relied heavily on those. So looking into the future, the immediate need right now, the immediate need is space for our fire apparatus that we have. And then something that is needed right now is that off-road tanker. And that's something I'm looking at, like maybe grants to try and
just for everybody, it's, we don't have these opportunities to build new stations or rehab stations that often. And so if we already know in the foreseeable future that we have needs, we certainly should be able to make sure that we're building buildings that can accommodate it. We did that here, and we're doing that in East Milton.
Yeah, it's a challenge. Where do we see ourselves? Where have we been? Where are we going? Where are we now? Where are we going? And that's something that's hard to do.
So that addresses our option number one here. Option number two is the same thing with yet another bay added on in a new design, scabbed onto the side of our existing structure. Based on the document that we have there and what Chief had seen and potential future use of where the apparatus was going to go, that still was going to leave you short with what you believe was going to be needed for
best case scenario. Yes, like we could three modern bays would actually do wonders for us, but looking at 2 modern bays would
At a minimum.
Yeah, that would be, yeah, I just don't see us fitting, and the fire trucks are here, and they're here for 20 years. We've been for 20 years. So we have 3 fire engines right now, engine 1, engine 2, and engine 4. We also have the ladder truck. Actually, we have 4 engines. So engine 3 is a spare. So when something goes out of town for mutual aid or gets tied up someplace, we have the ability to put engine 3 in service instantly. It's ready to go. Or if something breaks. So we have that. That is a 1999. The next newest piece, or the next oldest, I should say, is engine 1, which is a 2005. So engine 1 is going to be replaced in probably about 6 months. So talking with the mechanic, he would like to keep 2 spares. One of the things that is a challenge for him is that when he takes a piece out of service and these are big trucks, so they take a week, 2 weeks when they're out of service. A lot of trucks just came back and it was gone for almost 3 weeks, a month, just with engine issues. They're out, they're hard, and they're out for a long time.
Do they take them off-site? I'm just curious.
Depends on what it is. Like, and the ladder truck was having motor problems, so they actually had to go off-site because it doesn't fit in any of the bays down at central maintenance where he does a lot of the work. So it went out for the engine problems. They had to replace a fuel pump and some electrical wiring for it because that is also a 2006, I believe. And so it needed some work. And then while it was there, I had to do a full brake job. So they did all the brakes on it because it was actually inside the bed. And the guy that mechanic shop could accommodate power mechanic. So when the fire trucks go out, they go out hard and they go out. So, and they're constantly requiring maintenance and testing. So the ladders have to be tested, the pump has to be tested, everything has to be tested to make sure that it's still compliant with the NFPA, to make sure that we're doing the maintenance on it. So when it goes out hard for a while. So he requested to keep 2 spares. So when you look at how we're doing, and why we need that second bay, is you look here, here is full. We're also getting a new ladder truck. That ladder truck should be in before less than a year from now. So we're gonna keep the ladder, the current ladder one. It's in great shape. Again, it did have to go out, but we just put a lot of money into it. So when the idea is to maintain that, and that'll go into the far bay. And nobody has ladders. I asked around everywhere. I was on a text with Quincy, Braintree, Weymouth, all the fire chiefs. Everyone's asking for ladder trucks. Anybody have a ladder? Anybody have a ladder? Nobody has a ladder truck. So keeping that spare ladder truck is really important.
And again, we have so many people in the community. One thing it took me a while on the committee to learn, if we have multiple cars at home and one needs service, even if it goes out for a week or two, we have options like rent a car. There aren't any rent a fire truck. So Milton department does what a lot of other fire departments do. They keep older engines, just in case they have to put them in service in an emergency.
Yeah, and it has to go into service immediately. It's always ready to go. Our engine 3 is sitting over there and it's ready to go. So if something died right now, it would be. So the mechanic has to keep 2, and we have 2 new engines on order. Should be by the end of the year, we should have 2 new engines and the new ladder. So those, the spares or the backups are what we need room for.
How
And
many
that's,
bays do they have over there that they can work on a vehicle, an engine at once?
at central maintenance,
Yeah.
I think there's 4 bays.
Could you store one down there?
No, because they're constantly working on, they are the fleet mechanics for everything.
For everything in town.
Yeah,
Yeah, so all their trucks have to go inside, then if they're working on cruises,
Plows
they work
and all
on
that.
plows. You look at cemetery vehicles, you look at everything, they are the mechanics for every, and the fleet, Milton fleet is tremendous. And the other part of it too is if we have to get into something right off the bat, if we have to go to central maintenance and pick it up, then that puts us 15-20 minutes behind.
yeah.
So we
Okay.
keep it here, and that's the idea, is to keep it in the firehouse so we're ready for it. And then nobody else can touch it. There's a lot of expensive equipment on that.
Mhm.
So we would like to keep it locked up, and we know what all the equipment is.
And so, Chief, just to be clear on option number 2, where I have it as no, doesn't satisfy the document, is that's driven because it would not allow for that added spare that you're talking about, or for any
Any future
expansion that you have?
Yes.
Okay.
Brian, I think it also be helpful, especially with the folks that are here with us today, is to explain, there's a tremendous amount of interest in the community, I believe, in the committee, of maintaining a historic building in the Atherton Street Station. I believe, just gonna throw it out there, that we will certainly, I think we'll end up using some, if not all, of what we intended with Atherton Street.
Mhm.
But there's a tremendous interest in that. So as you explain these options,
Yes.
would you mention this is a rehab or?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
And sorry for not being clear. Options 1 through 4 are going to be salvaging the existing structure and repurposing it with a renovation for fire operations. With each of those options comes either additional construction onto the side of the building to accommodate the apparatus. So 1 bay, 2 bays, 3 bays with the renovation of the existing firehouse as it's seen now. To go into option 3, the green column, that is the current design that we have now with 3 new bays constructed onto the side of the building. I have talked with Jeff, who's online from Context, who believes that could have some constraints as for the size of the property and how those would be aligned. That will need to be looked at. We find that would satisfy the operations, as Chief just alluded to, with the amount of storage that he would need. But as you can see, is options 1, 2, and 3 are really just an exercise of adding more bays on to each column. So option 1 would have 1 new bay, option 2 would have 2 new bays, option 3 would have 3 new bays on there. Option number 4 in the purple, that is something we wanted to explore. The committee voted to have the structural engineer of record to come out and do some more deeper investigation about the actual the quality of the building now, and to do a little more deep dive with some destructive testing and to look at the structure holistically. it was deemed that there would be some substantial seismic and steel and reinforcement that would need to be done, not only with the slab, but with the foundations. Also thinking about the challenges that we have with the existing bays, with the height and the width, that there would be some significant amount of demolition on the second floor in order to accommodate these new heights. So we wanted to put that in as an option in order to get two functioning bays in the existing structure and have still the single bay constructed onto the side of it to have three functional bays. We have determined that that will increase not only the construction costs, it will have a significant cost with the design as well that we'll need to kind of revisit for all the structural advancements that would be needed on that. Option number 5. We have 5 and 5B, and I'll explain that as I think there's a little bit of variance to each of these. Option 5 would be to construct a new facility out behind the old facility, separate structure, ultimately designing more along the lines of thinking of the East Milton firehouse that we're building right now, constructed with 3 bays, with a new administration wing, and leaving the existing structure as is, with no renovations. Option 5B, we wanted to put in here and put some placeholders.
Again, just for clarity, with no renovations and also meaning not using the existing bays?
Correct. Not using the structure itself, not touching it. Option 5B, we wanted to give a bit of a variant with that, which could be doing that new construction, new facility out in the back of the property, but also renovating the existing structure. I think there would be some deeper consideration and discussion amongst the committee about whether or not, if the structure was renovated, could it still house some fire programming if there's a separate structure that holds the apparatus that are out in the rear of the property. There would need to be phasing with that type of project. We would be able to avoid temporary facilities as long as you were able to continue working there for that 18 months. But this would come with added costs for construction, not only for the renovation, but for a whole new facility out in the rear of the property. Option number 6, which we wanted to kind of give you the full breadth of what the options were here. But option 6 would be to demolish the existing building and build a new facility in the exact location, therefore being able to dispatch out onto Blue Hill Ave at that location. We know that would cost, there would be significant costs with temporary operations, there would be demolition, there would also be site work in order to manipulate the site, in order to get the deliverables that we would need for construction. We did find, using as many placeholders as possible, that would be ultimately the most expensive option, just based upon any type of abatement that would need to be done, the demolition, as well as the length of construction, as there would be a different phase that would need to take.
So it seems to me the biggest difference between these last 2 options is that the end product, where the fire engines will be coming out essentially at the same location they do today. So the question I think for the committee to consider, is that important enough? In other words, coming out, it actually, we would, if option 5 says the engines would be coming out on Atherton Street, correct? Not the,
Correct.
yeah. And so the question I think that we all need to understand, especially community, is that a problem? I've thought, I don't know, I look to the chief, I've thought that it isn't necessarily any problem. We'd have to design an entry into the roadway.
I don't know if it's a problem or not. I think it's something that is, every problem is adaptable and you can overcome it if is it a challenge just to come out and have to take a right to uphill? It depends on inclement weather. Yeah, maybe that could be an issue, but I think for the most part, it wouldn't be that much of a challenge.
The hill there, I recall we first started with Chief Grant. Chief Grant made a big deal of if we were going to exit out onto
Bradley Road,
which is the other side, that has a steeper hill. I've sort of looked at them both. That is, and that was his concern. I'm not sure if it's as big a deal
I think Atherton was, and it was during snow, is because the trucks would slip.
Okay,
If I remember correctly, we can go back and check them. That was why we didn't have the trucks coming off the back. And that's why we're just coming out to Blue Hills.
Yeah, I think that's, you know, the what if,
Mhm.
it's hard to, you know, obviously advances in snow removal have changed in the last 10 years and pre-treating and everything else. Pulling out anywhere is, you know, you look at pulling out into Blue Hill Lab, that's a challenge too, with people driving by at, 40 miles an hour. It's always a challenge, no matter where you pull out, so.
and again, maybe for the committee, we can make another visit in the not too distant future. But I purposely went and checked, standing, if we exited from the back on either side, and the hill was greater on Bradley Road than it was at Atherton, just something else.
But I don't think it's really us going out there arm waving. I think it's just doing a test. You can figure out what angle the truck can go up,
Oh,
and
good point.
it's math.
I mean, one of our most experienced drivers was in the room. I don't want to throw him under the bus, but, you know.
Well, under the truck,
What's that?
you'd throw them under the
Well,
truck.
I on a little hill and it gets salted and sanded like crazy.
Right.
It's probably one of the first ones that does.
Right.
You sort of putting to Paul, what do you think?
Well, there is, I mean, coming back from when we used to go, we still do, but I'm down here now, but. When you're coming back from Curry College, and if you're out of light and get the cars in front of you, you're starting off to come back in to Atherton Street, to the, right off the back end. You will, in an early snowstorm that hasn't a plow or possibly not even trees here, but. I mean, you're gonna get that anyway, but you do have an increased, small incline there.
Would you get stuck?
But yeah, with all that weight, even though you got all that weight of water in that, yeah, you'll spin the tires. And the chains help too, they really do.
So I think moving into all of these options, obviously there's a cost associated with all of them, and there's variables that go with each of these options that we've tried to flesh out with them. I could run through them quickly. Temporary operations is a big variable and a big unknown at this point. If the chief and staff need to relocate and apparatus needs to be relocated, that can add up very quickly. For some municipalities that don't have any resources and they don't have any land, they don't have any leasable space for garage space, you can look at $1.5+ million for a year to 18 months of replicating a fire station in order to build where you're going to be. And so those temporary options do come into play when we have any type of renovation where the chief is going to be impacted that needs to be moved
I
out
mean,
of
we
that
talk about
location.
temporary, housing or what, it's not, a week or two, it's
18 months.
It's 18 months, 2 years.
Mhm.
So that's not
If we're talking about renovating the existing station, right, so, which means they can no longer operate out of that station. Is it within the realm of possibilities to have some sort of a hut that would protect the engine and, I don't know, a trailer or temporary housing?
a lot of places will put like a trailer to operate out of, and then like a Quonset hut. If you look at the city of Cambridge, I don't know if you ever followed that, they were rehabbing their headquarters, and they brought these
Some high-end ones, right?
high-end ones, and you're
Yeah.
talking, these things got shipped in, and it actually won an award for the design and everything else, and it's tremendous. The building is amazing. And they said they'll be for sale pretty soon because they've been there for about a year and a half now. So it's just one of
There
those.
you go.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. But I'm not sure what the price tag on that would be.
I think I saw the original.
No.
I think I saw the original price, and it was
20 million.
outrageous.
Crazy.
Yeah,
They were shipped in from Canada,
correct.
and
Yeah.
they're nice. They're beautiful, and yeah.
So obviously that's one of the variables we need to get over. If there's any, thoughts of potential neighboring businesses or things that could help and offset those, obviously we would explore that throughout the design period in order to try to mitigate costs on it.
I mean, 8 years ago, we were kicking around the table that perhaps we could rent some space off of Curry College, close by and what have you. But presumably, the $1.5 million estimate for the cost might be reduced a bit if we did, if we were able to get Cambridge's.
Well, I don't know.
No, I know. It's just an option. I guess if we get that, we should look at that option.
They're not gonna go cheap.
I know the designer, I can at least give him a call and ask him, you know, what the deal is with that.
So a little bit of context, this has been a 10-year planning process. And I think that over that period of time, a lot has changed. I don't think we need to go into the history, but originally the plan was to, because we wanted to get funding or make a request for funding all at once, we decided to try to design all 3 fire station designs all at once. COVID came, raised some costs, delayed some things. We switched the order of doing East Milton and Atherton. So that actually has benefited us in some ways, because I think now we have, thanks to the chief, a much more robust and detailed idea about what the programming needs are. And what the programming needs tell us is that we need at least 3 full-size bays. Full-size bays, which I would define as 21st century bays, not the bays that we'll get by renovating the existing structure. That's because, as Brian has said, BRYAN,
Mr. Forrest.
right, that raising the floor gives us more height, but there's nothing we can do about the width. So we still have the 9 foot 6 inch truck with 2 inches of clearance on each side. Probably not acceptable, I don't think, if you're doing a new design for the future. So what I think option 5B, I'm going to weigh in. What option 5B gives us is the best of both worlds. That is a new East Milton design on the Atherton Street plot, 3 full-size bays in a new structure, probably avoids any temporary operations cost, which is about 1.5 million. Saves us the cost of raising the floor in the existing structure, which I'm in favor of retaining, because I think if you look at the reason we went through this exercise, if you look at all the programming needs, we have enough requirements to satisfy both the 3 bays in the new design and the 2 additional bays. And I think we need to think about this as a once in a multi-generational opportunity. That is, this is never going to happen again. We're never going to have the opportunity to design all 3 fire stations in town at the same time. Second, and most importantly, perhaps, I think that we need to make sure that if you look at the objectives, we meet the chief's objectives of creating an all hazards department, fire, accidents, rescues, and that we do that in a way, what he's trying to do is make sure that wherever you are in town, the response time is as low as it can possibly be, and retaining the equipment that we as taxpayers have paid for with our capital tax dollars, and making sure that we maximize the use of that equipment for as long as we can. So with what we have, equipment-wise, space needs-wise, and what we have coming, not in 2040, but in 2026, we have a new ladder truck coming and a new engine coming. And over time, I expect that there will be some other equipment placements. This is the option, I think, for a relatively smaller difference in cost. Gets us the best of both worlds.
If I could add, Leroy, there's been articles lately unrelated to this per se, but talking about there's been quite an increase in forest fires. We saw it last November here up in the Blue Hills, and we've got a lot of forest within the boundaries of the town of Milton. So it seems to me reasonable that the chief is going to make a case for this larger capacity water thing. So that's another thing that we probably is in a reasonable future to say on plan once.
Can I ask a question, Brian? when you say, the estimated total project budget is 18.6, does that include the renovation of Atherton?
That's what I did. So my assumption for that number is that what I did is I took the cost of what it would take to construct 3 apparatus bays with some administration piece of it to it, similar to what we have at East Milton with an added bay on top of that. Then I took the square footage of the existing structure as it sits right now, and I took that off of our drawings and our programming of what the existing and I put a square footage number to it. So whether it's $600 a square foot for reno costs as I saw it, that's what led to the sum of 18.6.
18.6.
Yeah.
And the other numbers, 1 through 4, do not include the goal of $1 million for the CPC funding.
Nope, so that would be located, none of those numbers reflect the goal.
Okay.
What those are reflected on is the budget sheets that I have later on. He is not.
So last time we met, I don't know when that was, Nick said, and I don't have this, I can't quote him exactly, that would be, in his words, the most difficult option to get through town meeting because it's an empty building with no use. Right? We had, let me finish the Roy.
It's not an empty building.
Well, yeah, program wise it is. So we have the building second floor here now. We can't use it because it doesn't have an elevator. So I'm just saying what he said, right? From his point of view, it's the hardest thing to sell. He said, we're better off tearing it down and just building new. He said that. So I just want to make a point of that because it's not on here. But one thing I want to say, I want to question, and I don't know, Chief, if you have looked at this. What's the operational budget when we do all this? When we have 3 spares, when we have all this new equipment, has that been analyzed?
Operational budget?
Yeah.
They're really not gonna change. Our budget is 95% salaries. So just
But the
it'd just be the
maintenance-
maintenance of,
But is that, are you forecasting that?
I'm just going on, we are not planning on adding any extra firefighters. We're not, so it would just be maintaining the extra spare engine and the extra spare ladder truck, and that would be it. And that, I think.
And that's minimal cost.
And that's minimal cost for the benefits that we have,
Mhm.
that would give us as a fire department.
Right.
I think it's definitely worth it, and just, having the conversations with the mechanic, the pressure that he finds when something is, changing tires and taking an engine out of service, he feels that pressure, and especially during the middle of a snowstorm, now he has to weigh, do I get the plow on the road or do I get the fire truck on the road? So that's why he's requested to keep the spares, and so he's willing to do that and help us in that, to make sure that we have an adequately equipped fire department. And again, there's no plans right now. Have I requested extra firefighters? Absolutely, but this has nothing to do with this. The extra firefighter will go on the ladder truck.
That's a question, by the way, that's come up to me personally, and I
Yeah.
think to the committee about East Milton. So when we were, the design is pretty clear out front. We've got a big poster and we're building a 2-bay station. So people are asking, oh, are you gonna be running 2 staff fire engines out of that station? And the answer is no. I mean, there's a 2-bay station currently in East Milton, and it's only 1 active fire engine.
So Ellen, to add to your comment a little, and maybe it's more of another variant of 5 on here. I don't know if this is something that'd be dead on arrival with staff, but if the existing structure is renovated, but not just empty, but actually used for some fire programming, whether that's the upstairs where currently there's sleeping quarters that's currently on the plans right now, with a separate structure that's out back that's more or less for apparatus and maybe decon and things like that. I don't know if that would even having 2.
They're not, it's hard to connect them because of the
Correct.
flow.
Correct.
Right. So my feeling is I trust you, Chief, you know what you're doing in terms of the spare. It sounds like we're designing, like when you design a synagogue for high holidays, right? So you have the parking lot humongous. No one can really afford to do that. So there's a compromise. So if we were going down a compromise road, I would support option 2, but I hear what you're saying about the whole spare, and I think I know we can make option 2 fit on that site without affecting MDOT, because we looked at that briefly. Option 3, I think we could as well, and it would still serve the purpose of providing you with enough new bays that you need. And it would be restoring Atherton to be part of the fabric of the station and pulling out onto Blue Hill Ave. It's just, it's keeping more on course from where we were, but also at the same time, you know, providing you with the space you need for the spare apparatus.
So Ellen, just to understand, if you had a preference of 2 of these, it's 2 and 3.
Yes, yeah,
Okay,
but
And-
three is more hitting the chief's program.
and so because of that, you're okay supporting that option.
Yeah, if that's what the group, we really wanted to provide that spare, you know.
I should note, and again, I don't have a history of coming in 15 to 20 minutes late to the meeting. It's 5:30 now. I know, I mean, 6:30, yeah. Hello. I'm happy if the committee's happy to continue the discussion. We all have a commitment at 7. I'm gonna, if you hold that thought for a second, because I'd like the opportunity to see if the residents that come here have some questions or thoughts, and certainly Jay funneling with the warrant committee. So, is the committee okay continuing? Is that all right, Brian?
Yeah, Brian, can I ask you a question?
Yes. Is that Gene?
Yeah, let me just try. I can't get you on the Zoom. As I look at all these things, the thing that concerns me the most is not spending money and renovate the existing station for the living quarters in case we have an earthquake. I mean, if you're building a brand new school, it's going to have to meet the seismic code. You build a new house, it's going to have to meet a code. I think Leroy's suggestion of building a brand new station down below that meets all the codes. I mean, the last thing you want is a hurricane, an earthquake, and the fire guys can't get out of the fire station. And that foundation was built in 1902. And I don't have any faith. I know the structural engineer thinks it can work, but I'm not as confident as he is.
Well, that's a good point, Gene, to remind the group. He did go back out there and do what we asked him. He opened up areas, they dug.
And this is why we did it.
Yes, he did a test pit at the foundation and he was good with his original conclusion. So it's not, there, you know, the foundation isn't falling apart underneath the sewer.
Correct. Yes.
Well, I think one of those plans talks about not upgrading the structure for the living quarters of the fire department. For the money we're going to spend, I can't see why we wouldn't spend a little more and make sure that the living quarters.
Gene, context at the table, they'd like to weigh in on this, so.
Jeff can supersede me if he wants. I'm just basically the current design, and correct me if I'm wrong, has an interior, like an existing building renovation that does not exceed 51%, and therefore we do not need to upgrade the existing building structure to be as robust as you would if you were building all brand new under the category level 4. So what Gene is saying is that the existing building, the Atherton structure, and we have to be conscious of this during design, if it would remain not exceeding that 51%, to Gene's point, it's just less hardened for a disaster situation. So an earthquake. So it's completely warranted comment. I'm just kind of explaining that that's what that means. The existing building 1901 doesn't have the structural capacity that you would build a modern fire station with. If you were to choose to renovate that existing building beyond 51%, the code would require you to harden the structure, which would basically be gutting that building to add a structural skeletal system to it to accommodate that.
So if I might, I just want to highlight what Sean just said. It does not have the structural capacity that you would require if you were building a new fire station.
That's true of a lot of buildings.
I just want to make sure everyone heard that.
Yeah, that's done all day long.
With the committee's agreement, I'd like to open up
Yeah.
for some of the folks that are here. Oh, yes, we have the two interested right away, the chair of our historic commission.
Speak from here, or
Yeah, that's fine.
I'll be real quick. Steve O'Donnell, Historical Commission. And I'm the chair of the Historical Commission, also a member of the Community Preservation Committee.
Oh, thank you.
As you might guess, I'm advocating for the preservation and reuse of the Atherton Street Station. You all know the history of it, I don't have to go through that. You're also all too young to remember the old town hall, which was demolished about 70 years ago. Take the credit. We still are accosted by people. How could the town let that happen? How could they do that? Well, in the 1950s, yeah, mow it down and build something else, and that's what we
Especially
have.
building such an ugly replacement.
Well, you said it, I didn't. And what people don't realize
25 Spruce, Buffalo.
is that the old town hall stood immediately in front of the present one. It could have been left there with an addition. It wasn't, it was a mistake to tear it down. We're discussing preservation and reuse of Atherton. Is that a mistake that's gonna resonate for the next 70 years? The commission's interested in preserving buildings. We're also interested in producing or preserving a strong character of the town. The Atherton Street Station contributes to that historic character, particularly of that upper Blue Hill Avenue and Canton Avenue end of town, much the same way as the town hall contributed to Central Milton. There is money available, would be money available from the CPC. Rob can address that better than I. But I remember when this whole fire station situation was being addressed, this committee and Brian in particular was adamant about doing all three stations at the same time. Don't pit one side of town against another. Get it all out there, tell people what we're gonna do, let them vote on it, let town meeting appropriate the money.
And Steve, just because for clarity, it's also because our project manager and our architect said, look, if you put all three together, you're gonna get better price because it's a bigger, longer project.
Well, what I fear could well happen if the decision was made to demolish the station and build new. Everybody voted for something. New station that we're in, new station in East Milton, a renovated station with the addition. Changing it in the middle of the game, is that almost like bait and switch? We voted to do something. Now, we know there's been inflation. We know that. But there's also been inflation in what we're producing as well. East Milton is larger than what was proposed. Atherton is being proposed to be larger than was originally sold. So I want to see if the switch like, now how much more money do we have to pay for what? The historic character of the town is important. I'm looking at these numbers here, and yeah, there's a big difference between option 1 and option 4 or option 5. The difference between a couple of them is only $1 million. $1 million. Well, an extra day costs $500,000, so what's $1 million? I don't see any reason why, with the information that's been provided tonight, and for the hours and months and years that this committee has been working on this, why the station can't be preserved and reused. I would also agree with leaving a building empty or renovating it, leaving it there, and well, we can probably find something to do with it. Try to sell that to town meeting.
So Steve, just so I understand, you're saying, look, some of it at least could be reused for the fire department. You're not advocating it's gonna just be that building addition, but if we can save that thing, and by the way, it is a very historic building, and I don't think we could travel anywhere in the state, and I don't know how far out to find public use building, 100 years old, with hand fitted stones all around all the walls. I mean, it does stand out.
Yeah, I mean, you've got 4 or 4.5 options for using the building. I'm simply speaking to preserving and reusing the building as opposed to something else.
You clearly don't want it demolished.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Rob Lee Dash, I sit on the Community Preservation Committee with Steve. I'm also a town meeting member in Precinct 10. I live around the corner for those of you who know me. This building's special. So for me, I'm also a professional architect and a partner downtown. We do a lot of historic preservation buildings. So I know the value of keeping historical buildings and reusing them. So to the point that was brought up about just leaving it empty, I think that is a good point. Something needs to be reused there if you're going to look for extra money. I will say that, you know, we do theaters, we specialize in theaters. So we just had a grand opening this weekend at the Criterion in New Bedford. That project started off at $16 million. That was in 2000, the year of the pandemic. It finished with a $32 million budget. It didn't get there without the use of public funding, but it opened its doors this weekend. And it's an amazing project. What I'm gonna be here as an advocate to keeping this building. Milton's history is so strong, and it's a special building in my mind that you need to keep. So I absolutely think the one that there's a no here and demolishing that building is a huge mistake. To Steve's point, where it was the town hall, that's a whole thing that has sailed. I think you're sitting in a great example with the central firehouse here in the old building. That's a great reuse of that building. That probably is one of our favorite meeting rooms now is in the old building. So that's one piece of this. The other part that I just want to come here and say is that, you know, the CPA was passed with the notion that it's going to be used for the Atherton fire station. And, you know, I just got an email back today from Ellen, and now that we're catching up on this, I want the committee to understand that the CPA has been in existence for 4 years. Just a couple of weeks ago, we passed our first, we passed the first bonding CPA funded project, which has to go to town meeting and needs a 2/3 vote for the Wharf Park project, and that was a $750,000 project. Just so you're aware of that, over the time, that's going to take, our committee has about $1 million roughly. And so that, if it gets approved at town meeting, that will be about a $70,000 or $80,000 hit on our budget. So that kind of gives you an idea that what I would like to say is that our committees need to talk, right? And the CPA was funded with this in mind. So $1 million doesn't surprise me. I think you get a lot of support from the CPC to even go higher. So, you know, back to the architect.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Well, so I think it's go back and look at what can be funded.
Yeah.
And look at where that can go. Even $2 million would only be $160 or $1,000 a year hit.
Rob, just for clarity, one of the key points you're making there is though the first 3 years of CPA expenditures we're all using that year's money, divvied up by the 3-part. You're now at a point, and I know other preservation committees have done it. You're able to now put the project out for several years and dedicating a certain amount of funding per year, correct?
Per year, yeah, and it's committed, so it's not like we're going out for new funding. It does need to get 2/3 vote passed at town meeting, but you know, I think there's a lot of history here. You know, to say that there wouldn't be a bait and switch because the CPA was always, you know, a big portion of it was to put it towards this fire station. So I think there needs to be a little bit more detail and have people from this committee meet with the CPC. It's a good time to do that, by the way, as well, because we're going to be looking in a couple of months. There's going to be the eligibility period to go figure out where that funding is and look at the detailed construction piece of this to figure out where that budget will be taken out for the long term. So, and I do think there will be some there would be some support there for it. And I think I would like to see personally, to see that gap to build over that million or more, because I think it's funding. So anyways, so I think there needs to be a little bit more deeper dive into that and figure out where you can close that budget gap. I guess I had one question for you as a committee is, I know the town meeting had voted for these 3 projects. Where do we sit with like leftover funds? How much more is?
Yeah,
gonna be
that's a
asked
great
about?
question, and we have the chair, oh, he's leaving, but I've already explained this to him. He said spend whatever we need. You know? Yeah, so basically, this is worth the explanation. Full the select chair, Tom Hurley, thank you. Had a brilliant idea. He saw that the town was paying money for the rebuild of the 6 schools and the rebuild of the Milton Library. And he said, look, we know we have to do something with the fire stations. And at the time, we also thought that there might be a case for doing some more building down at the DPW yard. So he drafted a proposal and it's the only one still in the state that had to go through town meeting, get their approval, the town get their approval, and the state legislature's approval. And it's a special purpose stabilization fund. People in Milton typically refer to it as the Hurley amendment. At the time, they looked at the declining debt and said, okay, what could this afford for new construction? And the analysis was based on the current interest rates with the declining debt. And so we went in and they said they calculated this about $50 million worth of expense. Okay. So we did our analysis for the 3 stations, looked at putting on at once, get the best cost, yada, yada. And we come up with, I think it was 34.5 million. And said, all right, that's what we need. We're not going to ask for more than we need. And that's when we went, Rob, to the town. We were town meeting in the town. And so then COVID hit. And so the question is the best way to articulate it. When we complete the East Milton station, will there be funds left over to attack Atherton Street? And the answer is basically no. There certainly be, if I would say, less than $1 million.
Correct. That's what we're.
So we got 2 for the price of 3, whatever, whenever we have.
Yeah. And Rob, you're in the business and you.
Yeah, I know.
Well, but except there's one key point that's not clear. It's because of the interest rate more than anything else. So the interest rate that was available when they did the library and the 6 schools was significantly less than the interest rate right after COVID. And as a matter of fact, I've had some conversations, and Nick is sitting there, and Nick, if I say anything that you think is inaccurate, please correct me. But I did say to Jay Fundley, I wanted to sit down with the town accountant who incidentally, we used her a lot in the early days of that Hurley Amendment funding formula, and she's pretty good at that. So I'm going to sit down. Jay wants to bring a couple of members. I wanted to tell our committee, he wants to bring a couple of members from the warrant committee, right, to that discussion. But bottom line is, there's not enough money there because of the interest rates to fund Atherton Street. There may not be, we don't know how much, but it's practically nothing. Is that a fair statement?
Right now, based on modeling out the final issuances for all of the work done to date and completing East Milton, in terms of what the fund can support, it's about $200,000 a year in debt service per year. And a $15 million project might cost about $2.5 million in debt service. So of the $1.25 million the town would need, there's only about $200,000 to $250,000 available in future funding. So we will be able to offset some of that cost, but the fund can't support the entire debt service.
And Nick, a great point with our conservation people, our community preservation people. If we were to get funds, the earlier we can get funds from a source like the Community Preservation Act Committee, the better that is for if we can delay going to that formula for a year, it improves things somewhat. I don't know if it's huge, Nick. I'm looking to you, but no.
At this point,
It's not very huge on 20 million.
Yeah. All right.
But it'll be, whatever it is.
Yeah, so the calcs that were done originally said 50 million, and those calculations just don't substantiate what today's interest rates environment have
Or do
supported.
we have any clue? Even with these numbers, if it's 14 to not 18 or whatever it is, you've gotta have some ballpark of what it would be, right?
In terms of
Your
additional,
debt service, whatever,
Yeah, so,
the general ask.
a $15 million project is probably about $1.25 million each year. Of which we have 200 grand, I think taxpayers will be asked in that scenario to pay another $1 million on over on top of what is already expected of them. So that's the incremental increase that taxpayers will feel.
And-
And that's about a 1% increase on the average tax.
And by the way, you know, when we went to the community, we had such a strong sales pitch. And I'm not afraid to say it, I said it at the time, be able to say, hey, you know what, we're gonna build 3 fire stations and we're not going to increase your taxes. Which was true because the taxes were frozen with the Hurley Amendment. And the taxes did not go up. Obviously, we don't have that option anymore. And so we've got to present and articulate a proposal that's gonna make the most sense to the town and both both the Warren Committee, town meeting and town residents will agree to support.
What's your time frame? Is that this spring or are you looking next spring? What if?
With our town manager sitting in the room,
Yeah,
he would love us to have a number to come to the spring town meeting. Is that correct, Nick?
So I think we're looking at a 2-step process where Springtown meeting this year to request funding for wrapping up the design of the committee's recommendation.
right.
And then following subsequently either to the fall town meeting, fall ballot question vote for the project cost, or alternatively till spring of the following year for the same process, ballot question vote and a town meeting vote. Both will be required for the full project.
Thank you.
And so, Rob, you're right. I would like to visit Community Preservation Committee soon. I had told my committee members here, I was gonna try to reach Tom between our last meeting now and have it, to sit down with them and have it, but yeah, I'd like to do that sooner. rather than later, But
go with you if you want.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And all of the members here, absolutely.
Yeah.
So but getting back to where we have to kind of get a sense of what is it we're doing. So I've already heard from 2 of the members of the Atherton Street Subcommittee. One member said, look, I prefer option 2 or 3. And one member said, just option 6, is that correct? Roy?
5B.
I'm sorry, 5.
That's the whole world, 5B.
5B, okay.
And Nick, I was quoting you before, maybe poorly, so I'm gonna ask you, your comment on 5B, I just want to be clear if I was misquoting you, is that you're concerned that we would have an empty building with no use?
I think that's partially due to a misunderstanding of what we applied. I think my concern would be. Doesn't sound like there's a clear game plan for what the rest of the building will be used for. It sounds like perhaps the 2 bays would be available for storage, but what is the game plan for the rest of the building? And we'd be facing a lot of the same problems we have with the building next door, where we have usable space on an upper floor that can't be open to the public without the elevator. So it just presents those challenges. We have a great meeting room being used now. School committee's been there all the time. A lot of boards committees are using the meeting room. And obviously PC's been going on, so it's getting use there.
And
It's
Nick,
like
if I
what
could,
still haven't been fixed, renovated, put to use. Would that problem repeat itself here as well? But it's kind of a concern that I
Okay.
had it now.
and for everyone, the select board at the time that we were building this station. Asked us if we could take some of the fire station funds to build that conference room on the first floor for the building they were vacating, only because since we had a contractor on site and doing the work, they could do it significantly cheaper than the town would have to pay in the future to have that rehab. And so we did do that. We didn't take on the cost of the elevator, which would certainly help the second floor. But just the pitch.
Mhm.
It's sort of, Nick, I keep thinking of it as a IOU from the town.
Yeah, and I think my perspective then and now, it's doing the fire station component of the project is great and it's much needed, but to leave kind of half complete projects, because it poses future challenges and future problems. And in a budget crunch, those are hard ones to kind of.
Okay.
So,
No, that makes sense. And actually, you know, there's certainly in the community, there's a lot of discussion and a lot of comments about what's gonna happen to the old East Milton station.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so, yeah, as you can
It's
see.
another-
Okay, are other members in the community? I see we have our newest select board member, John.
Yeah. I'm not up to date on all this stuff, and I'm sorry.
That's
I was
okay.
on the warrant committee when we voted to move this forward to the town meeting, and all you had to do was look at the picture behind us. It was horse and wagon pulling the fire trucks out of the, so the town got their money's worth out of all these stations. And the fire department deserves modern stations that have all those things that find out happens to them with the exhaust and everything else.
Yeah.
And just one question. About 8 months ago, I'm reading that the city of Quincy got federally funded for their future central fire station. Did we ever put in for those type of funds?
So we, the committee, did not.
$45 million.
Yeah,
I don't think they were available when we were.
they weren't when we first started. I don't know
It's
what.
no fault of this committee, it's just that
Yeah,
They were,
it just bothered me. Then Mariano gave him 25 million for the parking garage at a statement. Seems like we're always behind the 8 ball on this grants.
I honestly don't think they were available, Brian, because we looked, I mean, I don't know if you guys were here then, but we looked at all the grants. I think now the state is starting to do that.
No, but
The
this
state-
is
the state
federally
is-
funded.
Trying to push a public safety building authority, just like the
They
schools.
should.
They've been
should.
trying to do it in the FCAM, the Fire Chiefs Association of Massachusetts it's been one of their biggest pushes over the last, since I've been a chief, it's one of those things, and Senator Timothy was huge for it, and he sponsored the bill. Unfortunately, he stepped down, but other senators and other reps have picked up that fight. I don't know, I know that they've met with, you know, everybody, and I was actually on the stairs of the State House, and we ran into the governor and we brought that up again, and it's been a conversation, but it just hasn't passed the goal line.
I know, they should, because it
I'll-
would
I'm
make it
curious as to
easier.
what grant they got,
It was
because
federally funded.
definitely funded.
I don't know. which
No,
one
I'm
it
just
is.
asking, unless I
Yeah,
read it
no.
wrong, but they. you
No,
know,
no, John, it's a good point. I'm glad you asked. I'll, you know,
It's just, I appreciate everything the committee's doing, and I'm not up to high gear here, but I also wanna know how come East Milton's taking so long? It's like watching paint dry. The other day, I'm down there salting a parking lot, there's 2 guys up on a lift.
that project, once the ground broke and we started on that, it's had a few setbacks. Part of it had to do with, believe it or not, that the island in front of it, I know we have somebody
You
else.
know,
Was that
Brian,
hit?
that's minute.
No, but it got a lot more. Making any changes out to the road got pushed behind.
This thing
Open,
got built, unbelievable.
say that again?
Building right out here,
Yeah,
there's the headquarters.
Yep.
You know, they made progress.
yeah.
Every-
When we broke ground, we expected that building to be done around November of next year. We still do.
Alright,
Brian, give an update. on
Yeah,
that?
happy to say too. I agree with your concerns, something we bring up on a weekly basis.
Today at that church, I do their work.
Excellent.
Oh, good points, yeah.
Monday, you will see a large delivery, what we call SIP panels. They're structural insulated paneling that's going to be going on. The very little work that you're seeing here all needs to be done in order for these panels to go up. So you'll see a lot of the blocking and wood that's going on into the webs of the steel beams, as well as the waterproofing and damp proofing that's been going around the perimeter of the foundations. There'll be a large delivery on Monday, and you'll start actually seeing a shell of this building going up. And once that shell goes up, temporary heat will go on, we'll get the slab on grade done, and then you'll see a lot of activity going in as all the trades will start filling up the guts of the building. But point well taken, understood
Yeah.
where we're at right now.
We're still on schedule for early winter next year,
Yes.
late fall.
Right.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I agree with Mr. O'Donnell, I'd hate to see that building go not used. I understand what the chief's saying, but plus, they had an override to keep Engine 4 open, so the warrant committee man trying to hint around, do you need it? That was voted to keep that fire station open.
I
So
remember
don't
it
think
well.
anybody can close that,
Yeah.
just a little history, right?
Yeah.
So.
I'm escaping the name of the gentleman
Mr.
in town,
Dingus.
used to,
Chris Dingus.
Chris Dingus, who ran a personal campaign
And
to reopen, he ran it to reopen it.
And owning equipment, there's nothing better than having garage space. you know, it's great. So I'm standing behind the chief's opinion, Mr. O'Donnell's, and hopefully move this forward for all the taxpayers in the.
All right, great. Anyone else that wanted to address us? So folks, we're way beyond what we were going to be. A lot of that's my fault. The full committee is supposed to start now. Right? And I think the full committee probably expected that we were gonna have a recommendation of sorts from these. I would rather just, if the subcommittee agrees, to basically extend this conversation
Yes.
and move forward with some of the recommendations and see what the full committee would support. The subcommittee, is there anyone on the subcommittee that has a problem with that approach?
I don't know.
So
Okay.
we would not talk about East Milton, would continue this discussion and settle this and then talk East Milton.
Yes.
Got it. That's makes more sense.
Okay, great. Brian, you're okay with that?
Mhm.
All right. So is it the same dial-in for?
That's a good question.
I don't think it is.
I don't think it is.
You're gonna have to start first.
Alright.
He's building business.
Yep.
So I'd entertain a motion that we adjourn the Atherton
sorry?
Street Subcommittee.
Do you want to go building business first?
It's made and moved,
Thank you.
and everyone's in the room, so we can, it's, we're
Hold
adjourned.
back 3 times.